Welcome to Home Care, Doors Open, where we discuss licensing, operations, and scaling your home care business. Whether you're just opening your doors or looking to unlock new doors to growth and success, this podcast is for you. Let's begin.
All right, hello and welcome everybody. This is Lucas Carroll with the Business of Senior Care. We're back with another episode of our podcast, Home Care Doors Open. Super excited today to welcome Jared Wills, who is the Senior Vice President for Marsh McLennan Agency. Jared, welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, have a good number of topics that I want to get into today to help to share to our audience and just sort of learn from your expertise and background and experiences in the home care space. But maybe let's start with kind of what's your role, what agency, what do you guys provide for services, and then after that, I'd love to see how you got into this crazy home care game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so well, I've been in the business about 17 years. Got into the insurance business after a career in my family's transportation business, and started on the insurance carrier side as an underwriter for about the first 5 or 6 years. So as an underwriter, so I know what goes into looking at a submission for a company and underwriting it and providing terms. And then about 10, almost 11 years ago, I joined the agency side with Marsh McLennan. And my number one role is to produce, work with my clients, and find solutions to protect their businesses across the country. A myriad of industries: construction, transportation, and home care. I do a lot of home care. And so, just working with those folks all across the country to make sure we identify their needs amongst whether it's independent or a franchise system, startups, current businesses, long-time businesses, whatever it may be. So,
very good. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
A lot of our audience and some of them are shared. We've worked together with clients previously, currently, and a lot of them are new to the space. They're getting into home care, home health. Our audience is home care, home health, and hospice. And maybe we have somebody out there who's listening who's thinking about it, and maybe they're thinking about going the franchise route. Maybe they're thinking about going as an independent. But one of the things that that I don't often come across is somebody who has a lot of experience in insurance and coverage for a business that's looking to start a home care business, and so they usually look to somebody with expertise like yourself. When you're having those initial conversations with individuals, what are some of the questions that they're asking you, and what are some of the initial tips and information that you can provide?
Yeah, great question. And you're right. Most often the folks that we're working with, even if they've owned other businesses, maybe hadn't dealt with the insurance piece. And I always say, whether it's a independent starting out or a franchisee, they've got a million items they need to check off. Getting a legal entity set up, working with yourself on licensing, the insurance, finding offices, hiring folks, and so on and so forth. And so lots of different things they need to do. The insurance is an extremely important one, but at the same time, we're going to work, and we always do, to try to simplify it as much as possible. There's a lot that goes into it, and so, we talk about, for instance, if it's a franchise system, what required coverages they have to carry to meet that, the insurance requirements for that franchise system. And I'm still going to make similar recommendations even if it's an independent. You just have a little more, I guess, freedom if you're an independent, but franchise, is going to require it, and you got to meet that. And so we talk a lot, and the questions they're worried about, how do I protect my business? And there's lots of different ways to answer that, but lines of insurance that you got to have, professional liability. We're dealing with people. And if there's an instance or a claim, people are expensive when they're involved to get them fixed up. General liability if we cause property damage. There's third-party crime coverage in case there's theft. Commercial auto, is a big exposure. If they're out operating their vehicles on the company's behalf, that's a big exposure. And what does that look like? Obviously workers' compensation, helping people with activities of daily living, I often explain as like manual labor. It truly is. And so folks can get injured. And so making sure we've got the right work comp policy in place. Property is kind of a one that's not a big issue for folks in home care and hospice agencies because they don't own office buildings typically, which is a good thing. There's just too much going on with property across the country. And then there's plenty of other coverages that we discuss. Again, many are required, some I recommend, and it just depends where the business is at. It's different for somebody just starting out versus a business that's established, has revenue coming in the door, because starting out, all the money's going out the door. And so what do I need, Jared, to make sure I'm covered for now? And then let's have another discussion as revenue starts to come in, the business becomes worth more, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious what you've seen, and just to give our viewers kind of an example, is there a common claim, like a common claim for an existing business that you could explain, like what a scenario would be, and then maybe like a rare type of claim that you've seen, just to kind of give us a flavor of what would be some claims?
Yeah, absolutely. We see a fair amount of work comp claims again. Just slips, falls, trips. Could be burns, could be elbow, shoulder injuries because you're helping folks and lifting them. And then we don't see a ton of professional liability claims, although they do occur. If there's negligence. For instance, we're helping somebody with drawing a bath and we don't check the water temp and it's scalding hot water or something and somebody gets burned, could happen. It's the auto side is definitely one where you can see some claim activity. I wouldn't say it's rampant, but it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. If you're out, or personally, if you're out driving around, there's lots of accidents. An increase in accidents just with all the distracted driving. There's more people on the road, especially post-COVID. And so we see some auto claims for sure. We dealt with one where a caregiver ran a red light and they were obviously negligent and at fault, and there was a couple fatalities. So bad stuff can happen. That's why insurance is in place. We see a little bit around crime coverage. Oftentimes we're in people's homes and there's been instances where money or priceless belongings in certain instances disappear, and so it's kind of a myriad of things. It's really not, like I said, rampant. I mean, it's different in trucking where it's all auto or work comp. In the home care and the hospice business and everything else, there's a little bit of everything, and that's why we kind of make sure it's just a broad program that covers all of the exposures. And to back up a little bit, I just thought that I forgot to mention how I got into the home care side, specifically on the insurance. So I actually worked with a group here in Omaha, Nebraska, started a single location, independent home care agency. Actually, folks I've known for a very long time, so I got involved early, handled that agency for them, and then as they looked to franchise, we worked with them to put together the requirements, helped them with their FDD, and then worked with the insurance carriers to vet that franchise system as an approved franchise, which makes a big difference when we're going to them with each new franchise location that comes on board. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I handle a fair amount of home care, and then one of the gentlemen in my agency, that's all he does. Like I said, I do some construction, transportation, amongst some other stuff. All he does is home care. So we've got combined hundreds upon hundreds of clients in the space. So I apologize for not touching on that earlier.
No, I'm glad you said that. I'm curious on your perspective, coming from lines of insurance for construction and trucking and other things. when you started out with that first agency and moving forward, what surprised you about home care that was different than kind of the other businesses that you work with?
Yeah, I would say just, this is going back 10 years. Construction, and trucking has been around forever. I still think we're on the forefront of the home care and even to a certain extent on hospice type services, and so what I was really shocked about wasn't necessarily the coverages or what it took. It's just how many businesses there are out there, and still today with 10,000 plus folks turning 60 and older every day. That's just a massive population of ours that's going to need, and wants to stay in their homes if they can, and so I'm just, at first I was kind of perplexed at just the size and scale of what we were potentially looking at. And then it's just figuring out, okay, what sort of potential issues are there in the insurance marketplace for those types of businesses, and then how do we handle that environment and work with our carrier partners. We're somewhat blessed, and I am, to be part of Marsh McLennan, which is the largest insurance brokerage in the world, by about twofold. So global, national, that doesn't matter, and we've got access to about every market that we need, and so that certainly helps. There isn't what I would consider any real issues in the insurance marketplace today, specifically for home care. There is in other industries, those that have large property schedules, those that have large fleets of vehicles. There's some struggles to be had and are ongoing within the market. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think we see that. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think we see that too on our side, is that the barrier to entry for home care is much lower than, in some of the other lines of service where you may have to purchase property, you may have to
Yep.
buy equipment or something like that. So I think that's also attractive for a lot of people who are looking to start their own business, which is great. I mean, which helps our seniors ultimately to help to provide care for them. I'm curious from your perspective as you look forward in the home care space and growing that service line. What do you think? What do you think the future holds for growth in this market and taking care of our senior population over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, great question. I think there's still as I mentioned, there's still so much upside for the space. There's an aging population. There's people are living longer, which is great, and we're going to need these types of businesses. And from an insurance standpoint, we've got the carriers that are willing to write the type of business. I'd tell you, even with kind of the different claims examples I mentioned, it's a profitable space for the insurance carriers. And that's important. For them to continue to write insurance for the next 3-5 years beyond, they've got to make an underwriting profit. And a lot of insurance companies, books of business, again, outside of this space that have the large property, auto, and other casualty lines, they're not making a lot of money, even though folks maybe think they are. And so it's important to make sure that these carriers continue to be profitable. And if they are, they'll want to continue to insure home care and hospice type companies for years and years to come. So, as it stands today, and everything could change on a whim, there's interest in this space. There's interest from the carrier partners, and like I said, they're profitable. So that's a really good thing for those that are taking care of our seniors out there. And that's it. And with that said, there's caveats to everything. It's different for large assisted living facilities or nursing homes because, again, big giant properties. So that can be a tough point. But home care, hospice care, I don't have any worries about it today. So, or for the next 3 to 5 years at this point. So,
Kind of a related question for somebody who is looking to get into this space, home care, home health, hospice, and they do have some hesitations related to risk. for, kind of as you talked about already, caregivers in the home, driving cars, out in the public with things that could happen, do happen. Where would you put home care? And you kind of already talked about it a little bit, but on the risk scale, if you were just trying to make sure that you're protecting your business and your assets for that versus another line of service, what would you tell somebody that has some hesitations related to risk?
Yeah, I would tell them that I wouldn't worry about that piece. I think, whether you're independent or part of a franchise group, the insurance is still just one piece of it. Like I said, it's very important, but, that finding good help is probably, as we know, the biggest issue out there that affects our society. The insurance, it doesn't worry me. As part of a startup operation, you're going to have millions of dollars of coverage to protect your business, even when it's not worth millions of dollars starting out. So, somebody that just has those kind of concerns, it's pretty easy to put at ease when we go through what the limits of insurance are. For instance, the professional liability is $1 million per occurrence, $3 million of aggregate per annual policy period. Same with the general liability. There's abuse and molestation of $1 million. Auto, $1 million. Workers' compensation, there is no limit of insurance. If somebody's badly injured in a claim within a home or, in an auto accident to the tune of 8 or 10 million, the policy will pay. And it doesn't mean that, the client of ours or the insured is going to be upside down in their business or their business is going to have to close or anything like that. In fact, it's the opposite of that. So I wouldn't worry about the risk. If you do what you need to do in running your business and you operate as safely as possible, and accidents and claims happen, there's nothing you can do. But if you're doing the right things day in and day out, chances are it's most likely that you're going to have a good claims result out of it. And even the best businesses out there have bad claims. There's stuff that bad stuff happens every day, and it may not even be something that happened at fault. But the policies are there for a reason. Insurance, as I said, extremely important. Doesn't always seem like that when folks are paying for premiums and they don't feel like they're getting anything out of it. But I can promise when a claim happens, it's the best investment you can make. So,
absolutely.
Yep.
Perfect, Jared. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up for today. I want to thank you for your time and sharing your expertise and wisdom with our audience, and just being a part of the podcast. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, Lucas. I appreciate you, and good seeing you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
If you found this conversation valuable, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Senior Care. We'll see you next time on Home Care. Doors open.